The heat was merciless that afternoon. The sun punished the pavement and even the breeze seemed too exhausted to move. A sleek black car rolled to a slow stop outside a faded brick building, the Everlight Community Shelter. The vehicle gleamed, polished to perfection, a machine that whispered wealth without needing to shout. The rear door opened and a man stepped out. His crisp white shirt, his brushed steel wristwatch, his expression that always bordered on disinterest, all of it said the same thing: power. "Mr. Eli Grant, welcome to Everlight," said a woman in her 50s, her silver-streaked hair tied tightly behind her head. Her name tag read Director Lena. Her handshake was firm, her smile warm, warmer than Eli preferred. He nodded once, subtly adjusting his cufflinks. "Thank you, Director Lena." She gestured toward the entrance with practiced grace. "It's an honor to have you visit. The children are quite excited." Eli offered a tight smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. "Happy to be here," he said, as if reading from a script. At 38, Eli Grant was the tech world's coldest miracle. The youngest founder ever to take a financial analytics company public. His net worth danced near $10 billion, depending on the day's market. They called him the algorithm king. What no one called him was approachable. This visit was not his idea. His PR firm had insisted. "You need a human face, Eli," they'd said. "Get some photos with kids. Show you care." The shelter smelled faintly of cleaning bleach and dusty hope. Children's laughter echoed down long hallways lined with faded posters and handmade art. Eli's jaw clenched. He had exactly 40 minutes before his next call with a Swiss hedge fund. Director Lena walked ahead, giving him the tour. "Your donation helped us repair the entire south wing," she said, gesturing toward a newly painted door. "We now have a proper kitchen, learning room, even functioning bathrooms." Eli glanced inside each room without slowing. He nodded occasionally. His eyes darted back to his platinum watch every few steps. "May I ask what inspired your generosity, Mr. Grant?" Lena asked as they passed a small library filled with donated books. He gave the answer his team had trained him to say: "I believe every child deserves access to technology and education, especially those who start with less." The lie sat heavy in his throat. The truth? This was a marketing investment. A few photos here, a brief video there, it all paid off in public goodwill. Simple calculus, but just outside the shelter's gate, in the shadow of a crumbling fence, fate waited to interrupt his math. They had barely exited onto the sidewalk when he heard a soft voice say, "Excuse me, sir, are you the rich man?" Eli turned, surprised. A little girl stood near the alley, barefoot and pale, her oversized shirt hanging off one shoulder. Her dark brown hair was tangled and dry, and she clutched a plastic doll with a missing arm. But her eyes were what made Eli stop. Big, unblinking, and far too old for her age. I heard you give money to the people inside," she said. Her voice trembled but stayed steady enough to deliver the next sentence. "I don't want money. But could you take my sister?" Tom stuttered. Lena gasped quietly behind him. Eli frowned, unsure he'd heard correctly. "My sister," the girl repeated. "She's really hungry. I can't make her stop crying anymore. She's only 3. If you take her, maybe she can eat." The street went silent. The honking horns, the barking dogs, the scuff of passing feet, all of it seemed to vanish. Eli couldn't speak. The girl didn't look away. "What's your name?" he finally managed, his voice lower than usual. "Raya," she whispered. "I'm 6. Lena stepped closer, worry etched on her face. "Do you know her?" Eli shook his head, not taking his eyes off Raya. Lena crouched beside the child. "Where's your sister, sweetheart?" Raya pointed toward the alley behind her. "She's scared. I told her I'd find help. I told her someone good would come today." Eli made a decision before he even understood it. "Show me." He followed Raya down a narrow path between 2 buildings, Lena just behind them. His polished shoes slipped once on the gravel, but he didn't slow down. They turned a corner and reached a makeshift tarp structure, barely held together with rope and sticks. Inside, tucked beneath a faded blanket, was a toddler. Thin. Dirty. Her tiny knees drawn to her chest. "She's Mira," Raya said, kneeling beside her. "She gets cold at night." I try to keep her warm. Eli crouched beside the girl, his mind racing to catch up with his heart. When did you last eat? He asked quietly. Raya bit her lip. Yesterday, maybe? I gave her the last bread. Eli stood suddenly. Wait here, he told them. He returned 5 minutes later, arms full of groceries from a nearby mini-mart. Milk, bread, apples, cookies, yogurt. The girl's eyes went wide at the sight. He handed Raya a sandwich first. Share this with Mira. She nodded solemnly, unwrapping it carefully like it was gold leaf. She tore it in half and gave it to her sister before taking a bite herself. That broke him. I'll help you, he said. Raya paused mid-chew. Really? I promise, Eli said. Raya nodded, her tiny face unreadable. Okay. Then you better come tomorrow too. Because sometimes people say they'll help and then they don't. Eli swallowed hard. I'll come back. The sun had dipped low behind the city skyline. But inside Eli Grant's chest, something unfamiliar sparked. It wasn't charity. It wasn't marketing. It was the quiet beginning of something real. Part 2. The sun hadn't yet risen when Eli sat on the edge of his king-sized bed, unable to go back to sleep. His penthouse, a sprawling monument of glass and stone, offered views of the city that most people would never see. But this morning, he didn't notice the skyline, the smooth espresso machine, or the automated blinds gently opening. All he saw in his mind was a 6-year-old girl holding her sister under a thin tarp, offering one of them to a stranger just to stop the hunger. Raya's voice echoed again in his thoughts. Sometimes people say they'll help and then they don't. He'd built empires out of numbers, risk, and relentless precision. But no calculation prepared him for that alley. For those eyes. For the way she tore the sandwich in half. That wasn't survival. That was sacrifice. He stood abruptly, yanked a sweater from the closet, and left the apartment without even glancing at his calendar. The car's leather seat was cold, but Eli didn't care. His driver opened the door out of habit, but Eli waved him off. I'll drive, he said. The man blinked, surprised. Mr. Grant hadn't driven himself anywhere in years. He reached the Everlight shelter just after 7. Lena was already there, organizing boxes in the lobby. She turned in surprise when he walked in holding 2 large grocery bags. You're back, she said, clearly stunned. You said you would, but Eli met her eyes. I did say. She nodded slowly, her mouth tugging into a small smile. They're not here yet. The girls only come when the food truck arrives. I think they feel safer blending into the crowd. He placed the bags on the reception counter. I want to find them before then. Can you take me back to where we saw them yesterday? Lena hesitated. That alley? Eli, it's not safe. Especially this early. There are people. I'm not asking you to come with me, he interrupted gently. I just need the directions. Lena exhaled, clearly torn. Then she grabbed a pen, scribbled something on a notepad, and handed it to him. If anything happens, call this number. It's mine. He nodded, already heading toward the door. The alley seemed darker in the morning haze. The tarp was still there, sagging, its edges fluttering in the breeze. He stepped closer, heart thudding for reasons he didn't fully understand. Raya, he called softly. A shuffle. Then a small head peeked out from under the plastic. You came, she whispered, surprised. Her voice was hoarse, her eyes puffy. You really came back. Eli crouched, trying to meet her at eye level. Of course I did. I brought food. She crawled out slowly, her bare feet landing on the gravel. Mira followed, silent and bleary-eyed, her cheeks flushed. She's hot, Raya said. She was coughing last night. I don't know what to do. Eli didn't hesitate. He scooped Mira gently into his arms. She was so light it startled him. You don't have to do anything right now, he said. I'll help. Let's get her warm. Raya followed close behind as he walked quickly back to his car. Where are we going? She asked, not suspicious, just careful. To the shelter. Lena will help us. And after that, I'll figure out something better. The staff at Everlight moved fast. Mira was taken to the infirmary and Raya was given fresh clothes and a bowl of warm porridge. She ate in silence, barely glancing up, her hands trembling as she clutched the spoon. Eli sat nearby, watching without speaking. She looked so small in the oversized chair. So serious. Like she hadn't smiled in years. When Mira had been checked and her fever diagnosed as mild but needing rest, Lena pulled Eli aside. They've been on their own a while, she said quietly. Neighbors assumed the mother left. No relatives. No case files. Just ghosts in the system. He rubbed his forehead. So what happens now? Lena gave him a long look. Usually we call Child Protective Services. They'll open a case. Place them somewhere. Separate them? Most likely, she admitted. Especially given their ages. Raya might go to a group home. Mira would need special placement because she's so young. Eli turned his head slowly, looking through the glass wall where the girls sat huddled together on a blanket, Mira now asleep in her sister's lap. No, he said simply. Not an option. Lena frowned. Eli, you can't just make a personal exception. That's not how it works. Maybe it should be, he said quietly. Then louder, with more certainty, there must be something I can do. Legally. Temporarily. I don't know, foster them? Get emergency custody. Lena blinked. Are you serious? I'm not in the habit of making jokes, Eli replied. Especially not about children. That afternoon was a blur of paperwork, urgent phone calls, and very expensive lawyers being asked very uncomfortable questions. By the time the sun began its descent, Lena approached the small playroom where the girls were napping. Raya stirred when the door creaked open. Is she okay? She asked sleepily, her hand resting on Myra's tiny arm. Eli nodded, stepping inside. She's going to be fine. Just needs rest and some medicine. Raya nodded, then glanced away. Thank you for not lying. Eli tilted his head. Lying? She shrugged. Most people say they'll help and then disappear. I thought you would too. But you didn't. Eli felt something catch in his throat. Well, I couldn't. Raya's eyes met his again, sharp and soft all at once. Are you going to disappear tomorrow? She asked. The question didn't carry any anger, only an old kind of sadness. Eli knelt beside her. No, he said. Not tomorrow. Not the next day either. Raya reached out suddenly without hesitation and wrapped her thin arms around his neck. It was a strange hug, brief, almost businesslike, but it shook Eli to his core. Then you can stay, she whispered. Mira likes you. And I don't have anyone else. As Eli walked back to his car that night, his mind didn't feel like it belonged to him anymore. It didn't race with data or projections or market trends. It didn't calculate ROI or press coverage. It only held one thing, two girls. Two girls who had been forgotten by everyone. Except now, not by him. He opened his car door and sat behind the wheel. For the first time in his life, Eli Grant had no plan, no forecast, no strategy. Just a promise. And somehow it felt like the only thing that had ever truly mattered. The next morning, Eli didn't go to the office. His assistant left 3 voicemails about investor meetings and an urgent call from the Singapore exchange, but he didn't return any of them. Instead, he sat in the back corner of the Everlight shelter watching Raya help Mira spoon warm oatmeal into her mouth. It was a quiet scene. No dramatics. Just a child feeding a child with the kind of tenderness that didn't belong to someone so young. He noticed how Raya always ate last, how she wiped Myra's face with her sleeve, how she kept checking the window even though she didn't seem to be looking for anything. She was always alert. Always bracing for something to go wrong. Eli leaned forward. Did you sleep okay? Raya looked up, nodding with a small shrug. The blanket was soft, she said. Mira didn't cough too much. He smiled gently. I'm glad. A pause. Would you like to come with me for a little drive today? Both of you. Her expression didn't change. She looked at him for a moment, measuring his words. Then she glanced at Mira, who was licking oatmeal from her spoon. Okay, Raya said carefully. But only if I sit in the back with her. Of course, Eli replied. The car was parked just outside. For once, Eli didn't bring the black luxury model. Instead, he borrowed something smaller, older, the kind of car that didn't draw attention. He helped buckle Mira in, then opened the door for Raya, who climbed in cautiously. As they drove through the city, Raya stayed quiet, her eyes scanning everything. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. "Just to see something," Eli said. No surprises, the neighborhood changed gradually. The graffiti disappeared. The cracked sidewalks gave way to trimmed hedges and painted fences. Mira hummed softly in the back, distracted by the sun streaming through the window. They pulled up in front of a small house with a yellow door and 2 steps leading to the porch. "Nothing fancy. Just a home." "What is this place?" Raya asked. Eli turned the engine off and faced her. "It's a house. I'm thinking of getting it." Her eyes narrowed. "For who?" He didn't answer right away. "Come see it first." She followed him inside slowly, Mira on his hip. The living room was clean and simply furnished. A faded couch, a little wooden table. The kitchen had real cabinets, a working fridge. There were 3 bedrooms, one with bunk beds, another with a twin mattress. The third had a larger bed and a dresser. In the hallway, there was a bathroom with a clean towel rack and a night light. It wasn't perfect, but it felt safe. It felt whole. "I don't understand," Raya said quietly. "Why are we here?" Eli set Mira down gently, letting her toddle across the carpet. "Because, if it's okay with you, I'd like you and Mira to stay here for a while. I'll take care of everything. Food, clothes, heat, water. You won't owe me anything. You'll just live." Raya didn't say anything. She walked through each room again, touching things. The chair, the edge of the bed, the doorknob. "Will they come here?" she asked suddenly. Eli blinked. "Who?" "The people who take kids away," she said. "The ones who break families." "No," he said firmly. "I have papers that let me be your temporary guardian. No one will come without going through me first." "So we be together?" "Always," Eli said. "I'd never separate you two." Raya walked to the window, staring out at the small backyard. "I don't like it when people lie," she said without looking at him. "Me either," he replied. "That's why I don't." She didn't smile, but her shoulders lowered just slightly. "Okay," she said at last. "We can try it." It wasn't enthusiasm. It wasn't joy. But it was trust. And for Eli, that meant everything. They moved in that evening. Eli arranged everything: the groceries, the toiletries, clean clothes that wouldn't itch or sag. He hired a nurse to visit daily and check Myra's recovery. He found a retired teacher named Mrs. Ellery who agreed to tutor Raya in the afternoons. Quietly, efficiently, Eli Grant, who once couldn't remember his own nephew's birthday, built a life around 2 little girls. The routine settled quickly. Mornings were quiet. Toast, juice, cartoons. Raya started reading again. Mira giggled more. Eli still worked, but he worked differently now. Mornings at home, afternoons at the office, evenings with the girls. He learned how to braid Raya's hair. He learned Mira liked banana slices with peanut butter. He learned what it meant to be needed, not for contracts or power, but simply for presence. But one afternoon, something shifted. He came home early to find the house too quiet. No cartoons. No toys on the rug. No voices. He moved through the hallway, heart thudding. In the far bedroom, he found Raya sitting cross-legged on the bed, the curtain pulled half closed. She was drawing. He sat beside her slowly. "Everything okay?" She didn't answer right away. Then she handed him the paper. It was a drawing of 3 stick figures. A big one, a small one, and one in the middle. The one in the middle had long hair and held both hands. Above them, in bright red crayon, were the words, "When she comes back." Eli stared at the page. "Is that your mom?" Raya nodded. "She's gone. But I don't think she's bad. I think she tried." Eli swallowed. "Do you want to find her?" She looked at him then. Really looked. "Do you think she's still looking for us?" He didn't know how to answer that. So he didn't lie. "I don't know," he said. "But if she's out there, I'll find her." Her eyes didn't waver. "You promise?" He hesitated because promises weren't currency he gave out lightly. But something inside him shifted again, and he nodded. "I promise." That night, after the girls had gone to bed, he sat alone in the living room, the paper still in his hand. He turned it over, studying every line, every hopeful color. And he made a call. "I need a private investigator," he said. "Someone discreet. Someone very, very good. Because it was no longer enough to shelter the girls, now he had to bring their story full circle. It had been 5 days since Raya handed Eli the drawing. 5 days since she asked him the question that haunted him every time he closed his eyes. Do you think she's still looking for us? Eli hadn't answered that part aloud, but the silence had screamed louder than anything. Because he didn't know. And he hated that. So he did what he always did when he was cornered by uncertainty. He took action. The investigator's name was Simone Navarro, former Federal Missing Persons Unit. Sharp eyes, no small talk. When she arrived at his office that morning, Eli skipped introductions and handed her everything he had, the names, the shelter files, the photos Raya had drawn of her mother. Simone looked at each paper carefully, her brows furrowed. No last name, she asked. No. Just Mama, Eli said. Raya never knew the rest. Their mother vanished months ago. No ID, no social worker, no police report. Nothing. Simone nodded slowly. All right. I'll need a few days. And it won't be pretty. This kind of case rarely is. But I'll find out what I can. Eli watched her leave, feeling a pressure in his chest that hadn't been there before. It was strange. He'd once negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching, but now he was afraid. Afraid of what Simone might find. Or worse, what she wouldn't. Back at the house, the girls were waiting for him. Mira ran to the door with a banana in one hand and a crayon in the other. Raya stood behind her, hands on her hips, pretending to scold her for coloring on the wall. But there was a softness in her voice now, a lightness Eli hadn't heard before. You're late, Raya said. I brought cookies, Eli replied. She raised an eyebrow. Then you're forgiven. They sat on the rug together, Mira on his lap, giggling with every bite of a chocolate chip. Raya watched for a while, then picked up her notebook and moved to the corner of the room. She was always drawing lately. Future memories, she called them. Pictures of what life could look like. Their mother baking in the kitchen. Mira blowing candles on a cake. All of them on a couch watching cartoons. And sometimes always off to the side but clearly part of the scene. Eli. He didn't know how to talk to her about the search. He didn't want to build her hope on something uncertain. But every time she looked at him with those quiet, serious eyes, he knew he had to try. 2 days later, Simone called. I found something. Eli stood up so quickly his chair scraped the floor. Tell me. She was admitted to a public clinic 6 months ago, Simone said. Severe pneumonia. Malnourished. No documents. No name given. She left after 10 days and never came back. Where did she go? That's the hard part, Simone said. She's been on the streets. 2 shelters confirmed her presence, but she kept moving. A woman like that without ID, without resources, the city swallows her. But I traced her to a soup kitchen in West Briar. She left yesterday. Said she was going to look for her girls. Her words. Not mine. Eli gripped the edge of his desk. Do you have a photo? Simone hesitated. Blurry. Security camera footage from the shelter door. But I think it's her. Send it to me. When the image arrived, he opened it with trembling fingers. The woman looked thinner than he imagined. Her hair was tied in a rough knot. Her coat was too big. But the shape of her face, the eyes, it was Raya. Older. Broken. But her. Eli stared for a long time before he spoke. Find her, he said. Whatever it takes. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat in the hallway between the girls' bedrooms listening to their breathing. At some point, Raya's door creaked open. You okay? She whispered. He nodded. She padded over and sat beside him. They didn't speak for a while. Just stared at the shadows on the wall. Do you think she misses us? She asked finally. Eli turned to her. I think she never stopped. Raya leaned her head against his shoulder. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Just sat there letting her be a child for once. Letting her rest. 2 days later, Simone called again. We found her. Eli didn't wait for details. He left a meeting mid-sentence and drove to the address Simone had texted. It was a women's shelter tucked between a laundromat and an old church. He parked outside and stared at the door, heart pounding. Inside, Simone stood in the hallway with a clipboard. She's here, she said. But she's scared. She thinks she's failed. That the kids won't want her. Eli nodded once. Where is she? Simone led him to a small room with peeling paint and a twin bed. A woman sat by the window, staring out. When Eli stepped in, she turned slowly. Her eyes were hollow but familiar. Are you the one? She asked. The one. The man who found them. He stepped forward. I'm Eli. Raya and Mira are safe. Her breath caught. Her hands trembled. She looked like she might collapse. There, together? He nodded. Tears welled in her eyes. I tried to come back. I got sick. I lost everything. Then I got scared. I thought maybe they'd be better off without me. They weren't, Eli said gently. They were waiting. She covered her mouth, sobbing. Eli sat across from her. They think about you every day. Raya draws pictures of you. She says you'll come back on a sunny day. The woman laughed through tears. That's what I always told her. When things were hard, that sunny days always return. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded drawing. One of Raya's. She still believes that, he said. The woman took the paper with shaking hands. She held it to her chest like something sacred. What do I do now? She asked. Eli looked at her, really looked. She was exhausted, but there was still something strong behind her brokenness. Now, he said, you come home. Part 5. The sun was just beginning to rise when Eli pulled up in front of the house. The sky was painted in strokes of gold and pink, the quiet kind of morning that made the world feel softer. In the passenger seat beside him, the woman sat with her hands clutched tightly in her lap. She hadn't said much during the drive. Her name was Anna, Raya's mother. Myra's. She wore borrowed clothes and carried nothing. But in her eyes, hollow as they'd once seemed, something had started to flicker. Fear, hope, guilt, and something Eli couldn't name, something deeper. He parked, but Anna didn't move. She stared at the small yellow house like it was something she'd dreamed of but didn't believe she deserved to touch. Eli spoke quietly. They don't know you're coming. Raya thinks I went to get groceries. Anna blinked. What if she hates me? She whispered. What if they look at me and wish I never came back? Eli turned to her. Raya never gave up on you. Not for 1 second. She doesn't hate you. She waits for you. Every single day. Anna swallowed hard. Her fingers trembled. How do I even begin? You show up, Eli said. That's how you begin. He stepped out of the car, walked around, and opened the door for her. Anna took a breath and stepped onto the sidewalk. Each footfall was hesitant, like the ground might disappear beneath her. She followed Eli to the front porch. He didn't knock. He just opened the door slowly and let her in. Inside, the house was warm with life. Cartoons played softly in the background. The smell of toast and strawberry jam lingered in the air. Mira was sitting on the floor with a doll, babbling to herself in that sweet, incoherent way toddlers do when their world is small and safe. Raya sat at the table, legs crossed, drawing. She looked up when she heard the door and smiled. Did you forget that? Then she stopped. The smile froze. Her eyes flicked past Eli. Her hand dropped the crayon. Her whole body went still. Anna stepped into the room. Raya's lips parted, but no sound came. She stood slowly, as if afraid to blink. Mira looked up, confused, then back at her doll. Anna took a single step forward. Her voice cracked. Hi, baby. Raya's knees buckled, and she ran. She didn't run away, she ran into her mother's arms. Anna dropped to her knees just in time to catch her. The sound that escaped from Raya wasn't a cry. It wasn't even a word. It was a gasp, the kind that came from the place where missing becomes aching, where love and pain blur together so deeply there's no separating them. I knew, Raya choked. I knew you'd come back. Anna sobbed. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I tried. I got sick. I didn't know how to come back. You did, Raya said. You're here. Mira approached cautiously, watching the scene unfold. She didn't recognize Anna, not the way Raya did. But she reached out anyway. Anna scooped her up, and the little girl nestled into her chest like she'd belonged there all along. Eli stepped back, watching them. 3 pieces finally clicking into place. A mother and her daughters, lost, broken, but not beyond repair. Hours passed. No one watched the clock. The girls stayed curled up beside their mother on the couch. They talked. They cried. They touched her hair like they were making sure she was real. Anna asked questions with trembling breath. Had they eaten? Had Raya taken care of her sister? Was she angry? Did they feel abandoned? Raya answered them all in the only way she knew how, with quiet forgiveness. Not because it was easy, but because the ache of waiting had been louder than the pain of being left. That evening, Anna helped cook dinner. Nothing fancy. Just rice and vegetables, a bit of chicken, some juice, and plastic cups. But to them, it was a feast. At the table, Mira sat in Anna's lap. Raya made Eli sit across from her. She placed one of her drawings beside his plate, a new one, fresh with color. It showed 4 people. A mother, 2 little girls, and a man with a kind face. Underneath it, in big block letters, it said, "Home." After dinner, Eli stepped outside alone. The porch light buzzed quietly. The air was cool. He leaned against the railing, staring at the sky. He didn't know what this meant for him, whether they'd need him forever or just for a while. But maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe being part of someone's journey, even for a moment, was enough. Maybe this was the beginning of something better. For them. For him. He felt a tug at his sleeve. Raya stood beside him, barefoot, holding the drawing. "You made it happen," she said softly. "I just gave you the keys," Eli replied. "You opened the door." She looked down, then back at him. "Are you still gonna visit, now that we're okay?" He knelt, meeting her gaze. "If you'll let me." She handed him the picture. "Then you need to know something. In my next drawing, you're not just in the corner anymore." Eli smiled, his throat thick. "Where am I?" She grinned, small but sure. "Right in the middle." He stood, gently rested a hand on her head. "Then I guess I better stay right there." And as she returned inside, as laughter bubbled from the living room and the walls echoed with joy instead of silence, Eli stayed on the porch a little longer. Just long enough to let it sink in, that a man who once lived for numbers had been undone by the strength of a hungry girl's heart and saved by the drawing of a family he hadn't even known he needed to be part of. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more life-changing stories just like this one. Because sometimes the smallest voices have the biggest truths to tell. And the right person hears them. Subscribe now. There's more to feel, more to learn, and more to come.